Most museums have ancient artifacts, paintings, sculptures, but this one's full of bones, and it was calling my name. Welcome to the Bone Museum, a place dedicated to human osteology and the history of the bone trade. It's part science, part history, and 100% interesting, and that is why I am here. So if you've ever wondered what it's like to be surrounded by hundreds of skulls, you're gonna find out today.
My name is Masha. I am the Director of Operations here at the Bone Museum. I am in charge of the customer experience and the layout here at the Bone Museum. Plaques, the flow of the space, how people interpret and digest the information provided to them, and I also make some of the educational content here, and I sometimes conduct the school trips when they come down.
So what inspired the Bone Museum?
So the Bone Museum was kind of a way to deal with an ongoing issue. There are millions of bones out there currently in people's basements, attics, and whatnot from the medical bone trade. The Bone Museum was started as kind of like a solution for what do you do with them. Another reason that the museum was started actually was from a lack of accessibility to medical collections. The founder had tried to actually study human bones as well as animal bones, but was not able to get any access to them. Every time he was told that he wasn't qualified or they were too expensive for him to be able to deal with. So the museum is also a way for just regular people to be able to get access to real human bones, to be able to study what their body is made of.
The first thing that I saw when I saw your social media page was the spine wall. How many spines are here?
Currently, there are about 160 spines on the spine wall and counting. A couple of them are off display right now as they are in research institutions. So the spine wall is also a research tool. We're actually currently doing some research in the museum with them as well. Funny enough, we always know when bones come from like a smoker household because they always smell like cigarettes.
And they absorb that smell.
Yeah,
and you
they
can't
absorb
get rid
the
of
smell.
Because how are you going to clean the bones? Do you have to dust the bones?
Not really, no.
I would love to talk about your bone boxes. They're pulling it out of the case just for me. I feel really special. Is people will find these in their attic. Grandpa die, and they find these boxes, and then they call you because they're like, we found skeletons in our attic.
Exactly.
I cannot imagine going in my attic. You're there to clean out Grandpa's stuff. I mean, they must have a mini heart attack.
We have people call us all the time and they're like, hey, was my grandpa like a murderer? Should I be concerned? This is a half skeleton bone box. This was actually like the most popular kind of anatomy kit that students would purchase. So you get literally half a skeleton. So you get a skull with a skull cap, a femur, you get a tibia, fibula, you get a hand, foot, spine, half a pelvis, one scapula, 12 ribs, basically everything that you need to learn the anatomy without actually having to purchase a full skeleton. I like to say that, a lot of these students were living in dorms and they don't want a third roommate.
Right.
So they would only buy half and they came in this box. Everything fits in very neatly. So basically you would literally get your class list for the year, and on the class list would be medical bones.
Sounds like something at a Hogwarts where you needed to have your wand,
quill,
your books,
your
quill,
owl.
and your box of bones.
Exactly. The way that the students would actually go about purchasing these was from these medical companies here. So this is one out of Raleigh. They were based out in the UK. This is one of actually the earliest bone boxes that you were able to get. This one's from around the 1910s, and it came stuffed with a bunch of newspapers as well.
Oh, you even have the newspaper clippings.
Yeah, we have the newspaper clippings that the students used to actually pad the bones so they wouldn't rub against each other in the box.
Wow.
So these companies, they would be the ones that would procure the bones, clean them, articulate them together, and then they would sell them to these students. All the students had to do was literally get one of their purchase catalogs, find what they want in the catalog, send them money, and then they would have a skeleton at their doorstep. It's like buying something from a Sears catalog.
From the Sears catalog, but
Exactly.
it's the Sears catalog of death.
Yeah, so they would articulate the bones nicely and neatly like this. So, you don't have to pick out the miscellaneous bones and phalanges and metacarpals and metatarsals.
Yeah, they're all strung up.
Now, if you buy a half skeleton bone box and a half skeleton bone box, all the bones come articulated like this. If you bought a full disarticulated skeleton, you would get one articulated hand and foot, and the other one would be in a little satchel so that you can learn each bone individually.
Wow. When did they stop doing bone boxes?
So they stopped doing bone boxes around the 1980s, 1985, once the bone trade dissolved. In the 1950s, India became one of the primary exporters of bones internationally. In 1985, India banned export of bones out of India, and that, along with plastics being now more accessible and cheaper than genuine bone, schools eventually just phased out the use of actual bones and moved on to plastic.
How much did a student pay for this box, roughly, you think?
So this box being in the 1920s, they would have paid roughly maybe $50.
$50?
$50, $80.
B-roll box, bone box.
The house for human skeletons, etc. Articulated and disarticulated skeleton, upper and lower extremities, hands and feet, loose individual bones, etc., etc. Anatomical charts, models, etc. A lot of etceteras in there.
Always in stock.
And they have their address too. So when we get boxes with actual newspapers, it's always a treat because we like to read the newspaper clippings from back in the day. One of them, it's not from this bone box specifically, had a newspaper clipping that was like 97-year-old man welcomes 37th child.
Oh my!
They interviewed him, and in the interview he was like, I'm gonna keep having kids until the day I die.
Man, what a time to be alive.
He was really living it up.
YOLO.
This is also another really funny thing. So a lot of the bone companies, they didn't start off immediately selling human bones. They were already established medical companies. And this company here, Milliken and Lawley, started off selling centrifuges and microscopes, but also this is a newspaper clipping here under the magnifying glass, specifically this portion right here, is Milliken and Lawley advertising magicians' catalogs.
Magicians' catalogs?
Yep. So here it says slides, catalogs, conjuring tricks, jokes, and puzzles, beautifully illustrated. So they were like, here's the list of medical stuff. And then also, if you want to play some jokes on people, I guess here you go.
Here you go.
This case here, we move into the 1940s to 1960s. So the price sheets here are going to reflect the prices of that age. So here we have a price sheet for Kilgore International. Kilgore International is based out of Chicago, Michigan. And you can see here that a demonstrative skull, which is this type of skull right here, which demonstrates the nerve endings and blood vessels, as well as the sinuses in the skull, was $180. And a child's skull was $175.
What the?
And a carrying case was $15. And a Beauchamp skull, which is an exploded skull, was $195. Wow. Here's another price sheet here. This one is in British pounds instead of dollars. Again, from the company Adam Ruley. So this price sheet here, skeleton was 70 pounds. I guess it was cheaper to buy out of England.
Yeah.
You're gonna notice here it says like grade 1, grade 2, sometimes it says grade 3. So the skeletons were broken down by the condition. So grade 1 is like pristine, white, has all of its teeth, no bones missing. And then grade 2, like maybe it has a couple teeth missing, maybe there's like the person has lost some teeth over time. And then grade 3 is like the cheapest kind of skull you can get because it might not have been in the best condition.
Wow. It was somebody's job to process these and then ship them out.
So actually on our website, we have an interview with someone whose job it was to do that.
To do this?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was just regular people that would be doing this. They would be processing and cleaning the bones and then shipping them out to medical students, researchers, facilities. The bone trade actually, like I mentioned previously, India was one of the primary exporters. The bone trade was actually adding around $6 million annually to India's GDP.
Wow.
And here we are moving on to finally the 1980s. In the 1980s, is, like I said, around the time when India started banning the export. And here, MOD was one of the companies that would sometimes source their skeletons from India. And this sheet here actually says that it was getting increasingly harder to procure skeletons and that the wait times were going to be longer.
Yeah.
But India was not the only country that these companies would source from. A lot of them did source locally. The company Clay Adams, which we see here, was also based out of New Jersey, actually, very local. The bones that we see from them are Caucasian of origin. Kilgore International, they sourced locally and they also sourced from Germany. Another company, Charles Ward, they also sourced from Germany. And common question we get with that is, did they get more bones during the war? Actually, no. They did not, because there was no one to, first of all, procure skeletons, clean skeletons, ship skeletons. And also they had kind of bigger things to worry about than, making skeletons during the war.
They were all busy in the war, so skeletons did not come from the war.
No, they did not.
They're also not from the Holocaust.
Not from the Holocaust.
No, nobody here is from the Holocaust.
A bit of a humanizing piece for a lot of people is this one here. A lot of the times when the students would get their boxes later down the line is they would just get them in these like really plain cardboard boxes. So the students would dress them up a little bit, jazz it up. So
A little more festive.
I love the creativity for the bone box.
And here we also have some of those purchasing catalogs that I was talking about earlier.
Oh.
And another price sheet. This price sheet is for a human skull from Asa Anatomical Supply, who were also based in New York. And this price sheet is actually from 1984. And they had bought their skull for $65 plus $5 shipping. And this doctor that had purchased this skull is actually still alive.
Ah, interesting.
The museum houses an incredible collection of bones and skeletons, but I was wondering, where do the bones come from?
So all of our bones come from retired doctors and medical professionals or families of doctors that have passed away. Because actually, up until 1985, it was required for those studying medicine in med school to purchase a real skeleton to study anatomy off of.
So they had to buy their own skeletons
Exactly, yes.
in order to graduate?
In order to be able to study skeletal anatomy. Basically like a living textbook.
What's so interesting about that is that when I went to mortuary school, we were so fortunate to have cadavers or donor bodies, and I couldn't have done a lot of my schooling if I didn't have the donor bodies. But I couldn't imagine having to source my own donor bodies to get my mortuary science degree. So these people were having to go and source their own skeletons.
So it wasn't as difficult as you may think. It's not like they were going to cemeteries and digging people up for the most part. Starting from around the late 1800s, there were actually medical companies that took care of the procurement from people that donate their body to science, and then they would make specialized anatomy kits for students. So it would encompass, so it's called a half skeleton bone set. So you get a skull, spine, 12 ribs, one arm, one leg, basically everything that you need to study the anatomy, but only half, so you don't have to purchase a whole skeleton, and that's what the students would use. They weren't going out to cemeteries and digging people up.
Yeah, I think that that's what people think. When you see videos online, they think that somebody went out to a cemetery and they robbed the grave, and that's how you have the bones in there. And I know that that's not true.
So that comes from the Resurrectionists, which were groups of people from the 16 to mid-1800s who would go out to cemeteries and procure bodies that way. So before there were designated companies and laws about body procurement in place, resurrectionists, which is just a fancy term for grave robbers, were the main source of human cadavers for med students, and they were either people that the university would hire or they would be the actual med students themselves.
Interesting.
But the bones that we work with here do not come from that time period.
Yes, nobody went and dug them up.
No.
So there has been scrutiny online. People make videos. They question whether your bones were obtained ethically. What would you say to those people that say that to you?
We adhere to a very strict timeline to the best of our ability. We make sure that all of the pieces that we get into the museum come from a time period where there were laws in place that outlined the legal ways of body procurement. And there were also governmental agencies that oversaw that these laws and these requirements were met.
Do you think that public perception of the medical bone trade has changed over time?
It depends on the timeline and the time period that you look at it. Up until recently, people didn't know and didn't really care.
I think what you guys are doing is bringing new awareness to education and things that people don't think about. I also love how you house them in such a safe and respectful manner too.
Thank you.
People don't talk enough about that. There'll be individuals who are upset that you have the bones in your possession. This whole place is laid out so thoughtfully and so respectful and just filled with love, honestly. If you didn't have them here, they'd be sitting in somebody's basement or somebody's attic.
Exactly, and that's the thing that a lot of people don't really know or don't really understand, it seems like. A lot of people believe that they just come from cemeteries or something, but these bones are coming from people's basements, people's attics. A lot of the doctors that had to purchase the remains back in the day, unfortunately, they're dead now, and they don't really tell their families that they might have, a skeleton or a skull somewhere in their house. So as they're clearing out the estate, they're finding these pieces, and there is not really a lot that they can do with them.
So people are finding skeletons in their closets and
Yes.
in their attics from their relatives. They're like, what are these bones here? What do we do with them? And funeral homes are not going to take them.
No.
If I got a phone call and somebody said, I found bones in grandpa's attic, will you take them? The answer would be immediately no, because I would need paperwork and documentation on where it came from, one. Two, I don't have space for that. I already have cremated remains that people don't pick up in a cabinet. They just never come back and get them. So I would be stuck with a skeleton. And I think that what you guys do here is so important, because not only do you display them beautifully, but you keep them housed safely too for future generations. I mean, you really just have something so special here. And
Thank you. That's the thing no one really thinks about is, what do you do with the pieces? If you were to find a medical skull in your grandpa's attic right now, if you were to call the police wouldn't take it because it's not considered a forensic piece. You as a funerary director won't take it because there's no death certificate. Same with cemeteries, they won't take them either. And then you're also expecting just a regular person that's already experiencing a grief and a loss to then pay additional to try and bury the piece, which is practically impossible. So what do you do with them?
I know somebody's thinking, why wouldn't a cemetery take them? Because the cemetery needs documentation before we bury someone. We normally file what's called a burial permit, and that gets filed away with the cemetery. And if there's no burial permit, there's no death certificate, there's no other documentation, the cemetery is not going to want them either.
Exactly.
So we don't want them. Cemetery doesn't want them. But John, but John does.
John wants them. Give us your bones.
Give them your bones for educational purposes.
We have blog posts that are literally called, what do I do if I find a skull or skeleton in my house? You know, people Google.
Question off
Yes.
the cuff. Do you have people that call and say, I want to donate my bones to your museum?
All the time.
Can they do that?
No.
Oh.
The process for donating your own bones is incredibly difficult. Finding a facility that is able to skeletonize a whole person is very, not impossible, but very difficult. And then it is very expensive to do so. So it is possible. It's just so difficult, it's almost impossible.
My brain went to immediately, maybe I could call a body farm and they could lay my body out in a field. And then when my bones are left over, then maybe John and Masha could take a flight and come and pick them up, put them in a briefcase and bring them here.
Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. Nobody's done it yet.
We just got to hash it out before you die.
Before we die. Yeah, so pre-planning is very important.
Exactly.
Here's the pre-planning plug here. If you want to donate your body, or if you want something special really done with it, you should definitely make sure to do that ahead of time, because at the time of the death it makes things really difficult.
Yeah, they can't really ask you.
No, and then you leave your loved ones to do all the paperwork, and it's really hard. So if you want to donate your bones somewhere, you should definitely plan that out ahead of time.
It's a lot of paperwork.
I bet it is. There's a lot of paperwork to be born, get married, and die.
Dying is very difficult.
Dying is difficult.
It's what everyone else has to do after you die that's difficult.
Yes, it is.
There are millions of bones that were sourced for the trade. They're all in people's attics. So our goal is to try and figure out what to do with the already existing ones. And once we figure out what to do with the existing ones, sure, if you want to donate your skeleton to us, we will maybe take it, as long as we are able to figure out what to do with the millions of bones that are already in existence out there.
That are all in circulation.
If you do the math, there's an estimate 8.4 million skeletons that were sourced for the trade. If you divide that by just the population of the United States, it's one in every 40 people that has a skeleton.
Wow.
Yeah.
Somebody's housing multiple skeletons in their attic, and I want to know who it is, because I know for sure not every 40 people has one. Or if you do, somebody's not telling me something. How many skeletons are in your attic, John?
Too many.
All of them.
All of them. Do you want to tell me about any new exhibits that are coming up?
Yeah, we're actually unveiling a new exploded skull soon.
Can you explain a little bit of what that is?
An exploded skull is a chemically separated skull to show the various bones that make up your skull, because there's actually 22. It's not one whole bone, as a lot of people think.
I actually didn't know that.
There you go. We all learned something new today.
You have 22 bones in your skull?
Some have more.
So there's overachievers?
There's definitely overachievers when it comes to the amount of bones you can have in your body.
You know what's amazing is they live their whole life and they probably don't even know that they have those extra bones.
Yeah. I always wonder if I have extra bones in my skull.
Do you?
I don't know. Maybe. I would like to find out.
Tell me about the embalming table that you have in there.
Oh boy. That is a vintage embalming table from the 1940s, and it came from a funeral home that went out of business. And getting it, I thought we were gonna die because it was so rainy the whole way back, and we were in the 9-foot U-Haul with this embalming table that's 400 pounds strapped in the back. I thought we were gonna die.
Does it come apart in two pieces?
It does come apart in two pieces.
But the table itself is 400 pounds?
Yeah, it's like the top half is 200 and the bottom half is 200. So we had to take it in and out of the space like 3 times. It was terrible.
When my uncle sold one of his funeral homes, there was an old embalming room in the basement, and it had one of those super heavy old embalming porcelain tables, and we left it down there.
Yeah.
Because there was no getting it. I mean, these are so heavy. It's not worth the effort to get it out.
Yeah.
So I'm amazed you guys even got that down the stairs. I mean, how many stairs do you even get down here?
4 steps. There's an elevator, so we brought it down the elevator. But then there's 4 steps to get down into the museum.
We carried it in.
I am
Yeah.
picturing you guys hand carrying that table into the elevator, fighting for your life.
When we first brought it in, we had like a bunch of guys waiting, but we were supposed to be back at
6.
6. We arrived at 10, so 4 out of the 6 guys we hired for the job bailed. So literally, we were like asking people off the street to help us carry it in.
And they did.
Oh, that's
We got
so
it, yeah.
nice.
Yeah. The second time we brought it in after the flood, we had a professional mover help us. Jerry rigged a whole pulley system to bring it down.
Oh my gosh.
And it was still incredibly heavy.
What about the embalming machine you have?
The embalming machine just came with the table.
Oh, just came with the table. It got
Yeah.
a 2-for-1 deal?
2 for 1, exactly.
Oh.
We didn't really want the embalming machine, but then they convinced us to get it.
I think it's a cool piece to have. When we were visiting yesterday and one of the guests from the museum came up, they didn't know what it was. And the fact that you have one and you can just be like, well, that's an
Yeah.
embalming machine.
Well, we get to tell people fun facts like the embalming fluid's pink and that it smells really sweet and that it makes you hungry when you smell it, apparently.
Okay. Maybe I'm too desensitized to the smell of embalming fluid, but...
We mainly tell that to creep people out a little bit.
Oh, do you?
We've had medical students come in and apparently whatever chemicals they use to preserve the cadavers, sometimes the fumes make them hungry and they have to be told before cadaver labs that they're going to feel hungry, but that's not because they're secretly cannibals, it's just because the fumes.
I am here to tell you that they are full of shit.
Thank you.
And that is so not true. That smell of the cadaver labs lives in my brain rent free. I would come home from mortuary school. My husband would be like, get in the shower. Horrible smell. It leaches into your hair. The chemicals that they use to preserve those bodies, it dries out the bodies. It allows them to fully dissect the body so you can see inside, fully preserved.
So this is a replica.
Not a real. Oh yeah, how can you tell real from fake?
I like to do it by just looking at the nasal opening. So if you look at a real skull, all of these bones are going to be super thin and super jagged. They're paper thin. But on plastic, they're always going to be thicker and smoothed over and perfect, which they're never going to be on real bone. And also by feel.
I mean, I don't study human bones for a living, but I mean, I would think it was real.
This is a museum quality cast.
You can buy this at the Bone Museum gift shop. They have
Exactly.
lots of really cool finds here. So this was modeled after somebody's real skull.
So this is a cast of someone's actual skull.
Oh.
So this is Bone Clones. Bone Clones are one of the only companies that are able to cast skulls without damaging them.
That reminds me of what they did at Pompeii, how they...
Oh yes, filled people with plaster.
Yes, so that they could get the molds of what they look like. That's another rabbit hole for another day.
Pompeii.
Yeah, Pompeii. For anyone who might be on the fence about visiting the Bone Museum, what would you say to convince them to come?
I would say that, it's almost a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I mean, we have pieces here at the museum that there are very little on display worldwide or are none on display in the world. We have a femur with polio, which we had professionals that have been in the field of forensic anthropology for 30 years come to the museum and immediately ran to that piece because they've never seen one in their lifetime. We have one of only 3 gigantism skeletons on display in the world. So we have one of a kind and almost once-in-a-lifetime pieces at the museum.
Fun fact about that huge giant skeleton. Did you say he's 7'3"?
7'3", yeah.
He's 7'3", and Shaquille O'Neal's 7 foot.
Yeah, 1.
7'1". So this guy's only 2 inches, or was 2 inches taller than Shaquille O'Neal. But man, when you stand next to even that really tall, so you could see how tall the big giganto guy was.
Well, he was also 20 years younger than Shaquille O'Neal.
Really?
People with gigantism tend to not live very long, unfortunately.
Do we know why?
Their hearts usually can't catch up to the height.
So then for people that are really short, do they live longer then?
Maybe. Jenny, good news for you.
Oh, that's really interesting. I never thought about the fact that the heart would have to work harder, and there's lots of logistics that go into being really tall.
The tallest man in the world, Robert Waldo, he was 8'11". He was only 24 or 26, I think, when he passed.
So it's really interesting when I think about a 7-foot tall person. It's like one day when Shaq does kick the bucket, he's gonna need a super custom casket.
Yeah.
And I say that because one of the most common questions I get asked are, what do you do if I'm too tall? What do you do if I'm too tall? And what we do is we just bend your knees and we'll turn your hips to the side when you're in the casket. Or if we're going to cremate you and you don't fit in the container, we do the same thing. You just bend your knees and turn your hips to the side and you fit. So we do that similar in the casket. But for Shaquille O'Neal, that trick would not work because there's too much leg going on.
Yeah.
Even if I put, like, let's say boxes under his knees and I pick them up vertically, he still wouldn't fit because he's just too tall, way too tall.
Can you put 2 caskets together?
Yeah, he was going to need like a double wide and a double long casket. And then we're going to have to talk to the cemetery and make sure we can bury him in an extra wide and extra long plot.
Dude, not a 6x6, 12x12.
No, we're going to need longer than that.
That's crazy.
Custom.
I never realized how much makeup they put on the deceased until I went to an open casket funeral. My God, there was so much makeup. Did you remember how much makeup they put on Grandpa Dima?
Yeah, that's true. First and last time he ever wore that.
Do you remember he was caked up?
He was caked up.
They also have in the gift shop plushies. ASMR. I can't get it. Oh. I can't get a good crack. Chiropractors be like,
Let me give you this one. I think this one's just like overused. I think this would be a better ASMR.
oh wait, this one does feel a little bit firmer. Oh!
I wish my back cracked like that.
I might have to leave with this. And then I got a knee.
Need for speed.
And then I have a skeleton. And then if that's not enough, there's a skull. And then if that is not to your fancy, oh look, they have a tooth.
And it has
then
a tooth fairy pocket.
a tooth fairy pocket. Have you heard that you're supposed to hold on to teeth because eventually at some point, like if your child has something that went wrong,
Stem cells, right?
stem cells from teeth. Have you heard of that?
I've heard about it. If I do have my baby teeth, then they're locked away in Belarus in my grandma's attic, probably. So no stem cells for me.
My mom kept all our baby teeth.
Oh.
I don't know why, but she did.
I don't think our teeth were kept, right?
Hell no.
Hell no.
Hell no. Instead of a tooth fairy, we had a mice that would come and steal our teeth and give us money. It's like a mouse.
The mouse gave you money? The mouse would give me... Dude, the mouse gave me a trail mix.
No, sometimes it would be a chocolate, sometimes it was money, like depending on the mouse's mood.
So this is a Beauchene foot. So it comes apart like that. So you can look at all of the individual bones separately, which is really funny because when we get feet from like the half skeleton bone boxes, that's pretty much exactly what they all look like because they're strung very loosely.
Man, could you imagine having a job where you string bones? Like that's your job?
We actually interviewed someone whose job was to make skeletons for Clay Adams. We have an interview with her on our blog page on johnsbones.com.
Oh, okay. I'll have to watch that. It's weird. It's just certain things you don't think about that this is somebody's job.
Yeah. And she said it was a really good job. Paid well. She got benefits.
God, benefits?
Benefits.
It's 2025. We do need benefits. Insurance is expensive. Can I have you tell people where to find you and any upcoming events that you might have?
On social media, you can find us under The Bone Museum or John's Bones. We're on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Threads, S'more now apparently. Someone put us on there.
Oh.
We do have some events that we are going to be hosting. If you would like updates on events that are coming up, I suggest following our Instagram, The Bone Museum. But then we also have a monthly event. We have a drink and draw where we have an artist come in and he kind of teaches you how to draw a skull and bones in general, walks you through some drawing exercises. You get 2 free glasses of wine and unlimited bones to draw.
You had me at wine. Well, thank you so much for having me. I can't even express to you how amazing this is.
Thank you.
And how once in a lifetime just to see something so amazing, so thoughtful. I just feel so lucky that I even got to come here and experience this. So
Thank you for coming.
thank you for having me. Bye.